come out on this beautiful Sunday, not quite as sunny as we'd like it to be, but it feels pretty good out there, I'd say, for January. But I'd like to get started with a word of prayer since we're in the house of the Lord. And I'm going to have a quick introduction for our brother Lee here. And I want to call you Dr. Lee because you got the white coat on. Are you a doctor yet? Or you're a doctor. So he's got his doctorate. He's not an MD, I understand, but you are an MD? ND. He's a naturopath, and he's a master herbalist. I'll give more introduction here in just a minute. But let's begin with a word of prayer. Father, thank you so much that you have given us these incredible bodies. The human body, the Bible calls it the temple of the Holy Spirit. I pray, God, as we learn today about health, about what we can do to improve our health, maintain our health, I ask you, Lord, to just really, especially endow Dr. Lee with your Holy Spirit. Give him words of wisdom just at this time, especially, Lord, if we may have Q&A later with specific questions. Just be with him all day, Lord, and give him the strength and the energy. Give us all ears to hear. And, Lord, if there's some changes you're asking us to make, help us to do that by your grace. In Jesus' name, amen. So a quick introduction. I have Dr. Lee Wellard. He's a graduate from the Institute of Medical Ministry at Wildwood Lifestyle Center and Hospital in Georgia, and went on to become a teacher in applied physiology and nutrition. Lee is also a certified holistic health practitioner and has also completed his studies as a master herbalist, went on to a degree of his doctorate in natural. See, I'm just reading this for the first time. Naturoapathy, and is a volunteer teacher of botanical medicine at Andrews University. He's also done multiple health programs on international television, as well as on radio, and has done hundreds of seminars around the world, which I've had the privilege of attending a few of those seminars. So I'm glad to have him here in New Albany. It says here that Lee has developed an online herbal course that is designed to give the average person. Are you an average person? I'm an average person. So to give an average person a solid foundation in understanding herbal remedies. So by the way, I went to his website. I had to check him out, right? And look there, and he's got a whole program. So if you're interested in learning yourself about a lot of the things that he's sharing, so you could share them yourself, please go check out his website. And I'm sure he'll share more about that later. In 2018, Lee started the American Herb Shop and has a successful online business that specializes in some of the best organic herbal extracts. Lee also does herbal consultations with people and lectures in various places around the country. He is happily married with 2 children and has a passion for teaching health in a way that is attractive and engaging for those who listen. So I'm so thankful to have him here today. Is my wife nearby? She has a quick announcement that she's going to make, and then we're going to have him come up here. Come on up, sweetheart. All right, and Dr. Swain regrets that he cannot make it at this moment, but here you go, honey.
Okay. Well, thank you all for coming out. I just wanted to draw your attention to this survey. After the second presentation, we will be doing a drawing. We have a From Plant to Plate plant-based cookbook, really awesome, has QR codes that will actually send you to videos on how to actually prepare them. And then we have an Ancient Health Secrets DVD. So be sure to stay if you can, and we will be drawing from the surveys. So after the second presentation, you'll be able to fill out the part where we're trying to see how we did here, how we can improve, and maybe some things that might interest you going forward. And we'll do a drawing from there.
Looking forward to it. All right, God bless you. So please welcome Dr. Lee Wellard. Wellard. I say that right?
Right. Thank you, Pastor. All right, are we on? Okay, very good. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming. It's nice to have a little bit of rain. There's no excuse for people to go outside. They could come here today. But we just live about an hour and a half away in Kentucky, but my accent is all the way from Australia. So I was born in England. I grew up in Australia, and I've lived in America. So I speak 3 different languages. Sometimes they get mixed up together, so forgive me for that. But I always like to start by sharing how I personally got involved in the herbal ministry side of things. It was as a young person, teenager, when my grandfather passed away, my mother started to take an active interest in and Natural Remedies, and she actually ended up becoming a herbalist and starting her own herbal clinic in Australia. Little did I realize I was going to be following those footsteps many years later. At the time, I was a junk food addict. I grew up for the first 20 years of my life, I never ate one healthy meal in my life. Can you imagine? And so it's amazing I'm still here. But my mother used to bring home all these concoctions. I used to hold my nose and hope for the best, you know. And so that was my first introduction to taking any herbal remedies. But in the providence of God, uh, I fast forward quite a few years. I ended up getting married to a lovely lady. Actually, she's right up there on the top. We've aged a little since that picture, so kids are growing up quite a bit right now. But that's when we started about 10 years ago. And my wife is an intricate part of my ministry because when we were married 20 years ago, we went to the Philippines and we went to teach health education, and my wife got a terrible case of insomnia where she could not sleep every night past midnight for nearly 6 years. And so this led us on a journey. My wife, at that time, I had a very good lifestyle, so did my wife, and we were doing everything we knew how to do by the book. But still, you ever been in that situation where you got sick and you didn't realize what was going on, and it wasn't like you were eating under the golden arches every day and you were doing the best you could, but you still succumbed to an illness. So that's what happened to my wife, and we had to cut our stay short. We had to go back to the UK. Ended up after that going to get medical training in Georgia. But it was nearly 6 years actually, before we got an answer to this perplexing condition. And so, as I said before, my wife had a very good lifestyle. She was eating well, she was exercising. But you ever been in a situation where you've had a lot of stress for a few years and it catches up with you? Yeah? You ever heard that disease, stress? Okay. All right. It's nice to know I'm not the only one. Well, my wife had a lot of stress in a third world country, you know, away from home, away from friends. It can be quite stressful. And so when you get through a lot of stress, you lose nutritional elements. Some of those called minerals or electrolytes that feed the nerves. And so she ended up, as a result of that, having a problem with her nerve conduction, which can, in certain cases, affect the sleep centers in the frontal lobe. And so with prolonged stress for certain individuals that are predisposed, it can set up a state of hypersensitivity where sensory impulses from the nerves can actually cause the sleep centers not to switch on properly at night. And so you ever been so tired you can't sleep? It seems so ironic, isn't it, that, you know, you would be so tired, of course you'd be out of sleep, but you all had that feeling probably at some point where your brain just can't switch off. And so that's what happened to my wife. And after, well, actually at the end of my medical training, one of the electives that were done was on herbs. And so we bought this herbal textbook called Medical Herbalism. I didn't even open the book. My wife read it. And so she came across a herb called oat straw. And she thought maybe this would help me. And within 3 days of taking that, she was actually reading it to help someone else. And in the providence of God, it actually helped her to overcome her insomnia. So she was back to 8 hours sleep in about 3 days after taking that herb. Now, I would say it's not necessarily going to help everyone with insomnia. It's a specific herb for a specific cause of a specific condition. But it did nevertheless get my interest quite a bit. In fact, since then, we've probably helped hundreds, if not thousands, of people with their sleep condition just from that herb, one herb alone. And a lot of people haven't even heard of it. Anyone heard of oat straw before? Or Venus sativa? A few of you maybe. And so it's very high in minerals. That's how it works. It's now, you probably have all had oats at some point, right? Well, before you have the oat, you have the straw. Now, my wife was taking plenty of oats, didn't do anything, but the straw was extremely high in nutritional content, especially these electrolytes. And that really helped her nerves. And she didn't have to take it the rest of her life. She took it, I think, for about 3 months, and then on and off as was needed after that. But it really was like a nail in a sure place. If you ever gone through an experience and you've seen the hand of God in your life, and you think, well, God was really leading me in that area, and I didn't know at the time that it was actually going to direct me into another area. And so what happened shortly after that was my wife and I, we had a child, John, his name is, and we couldn't have children. For years we tried to have children, and nothing was happening. And that biological clock was ticking down, like Abraham and Sarah. Thankfully, there was no Hagars, but we did wonder when God was going to answer that prayer. And I wouldn't say that the Lord audibly told me we were going to have a child, but I was very strongly impressed one time in prayer that we were going to have a son, at least a son first. And my wife took a herb called Vitex. Anyone heard of Vitex? Or chasteberry? Anyone have chasteberry? Or Vitex agnus castus is the botanical name. And she started taking that because it's very good for hormonal situations. So this is where all the men should start taking notes. Okay? Write down this herb. This is a really good herb because it's very good at normalizing progesterone. It doesn't have high amounts of progesterone, but what it does, it works on the hypothalamus pituitary axis, which causes a release of luteinizing hormone, which stimulates the production of progesterone. And from progesterone, we get the other hormones. And so this really helps stabilize, especially a PMS went away. Just, she was having 2 weeks a month PMS. Anyone relate to that? Just mood swings and cramping and headaches and different things like that. Well, that started clearing up. And within 2 weeks, she was pregnant, and we had our first child 9 months later. And we didn't realize at the time, but that was going to be another testimony because my son had a immune problem. When he was born, my wife could not breastfeed. And it was very difficult for her to have this experience because she had Raynaud's of the breast. I don't know if you've heard of this. In fact, I was given a talk on this a few weeks ago, and I had a midwife who had been practicing her whole life pretty much, and she said to me, I've never heard of it before. And it's a very rare condition, but usually it affects the hands. We don't get enough circulation to the hands, but this time it was in the breast area, which means the milk wasn't letting down. And there's no substitute for mother's milk. And so we put our son on a formula, and he was getting sick half his life. And so we thought there's got to be something to help him. And so we started looking at different options. And one of the things that came to our attention was a herb called elderberry. Anyone heard of elderberry? Okay, all right. Well, elderberry was the next sort of nail in a sure place. And we started giving that to him. It didn't necessarily stop him getting sick 100% of the time, but it went from 50% of the time to about 10% of the time. And that was a pretty big difference for us. And so we thought, wow, this is amazing. It got to a point where he actually wasn't getting sick. And so it's very high in vitamin C, and it's very good for the immune system. It's good for the upper respiratory tract, especially infections in the upper respiratory tract, and colds, flus, and especially viral infections. It's extremely good for. And so we started, sharing that with friends and knowledge about this with other people. And then people started asking us, can you make this? Can you do that? It ended up becoming a full-time ministry. And now we actually formulate different herbal products. I ended up doing a few years of studying herbs and ended up formulating my own products. And now we teach other people how to do it as well. In fact, yeah, we've got a couple from this church that came to our workshop to learn how to make these formulas. And so that sort of gives you the backdrop. We all have a testimony, and sometimes, God in His providence, He doesn't enjoy suffering. He doesn't bring suffering, but He permits it to play out so it will work for someone else's benefit. And so I always tell people, our suffering is often someone else's medicine. So whatever you're going through, whatever you've been through, God is going to use that to in turn help someone who's going through that experience that you yourself have gone through. So let me just share with you a little parable from nature. Success is like a Chinese bamboo tree. Ever seen a Chinese bamboo tree? When we were in the Philippines, we had bamboo all around us, and it's amazing how strong it is and how thick it is. You don't need a chainsaw. Even chainsaw could be made blunt. And some of the bamboo that you cut, it's incredibly strong. But if you went to take a cutting of a bamboo tree, a small cutting, and put it in the ground, you'll find that you'll have to water it and fertilize it for 5 years before you see 1 inch of growth. Yeah, so you do this every year, 4 straight years, and 0 growth. But on the 5th year, in the space of 6 weeks, it can grow up to 90 feet tall. Now the question is, did it take 6 weeks to grow that tall, or did it take 5 years? Because if there was any time you didn't water and fertilize it, it wouldn't have grown. Now, if you had the eye of faith, you would have seen it was growing the whole time. It was just growing under the ground. Okay, it was growing out. We used to have bamboo in our garden, and you try to dig a veggie garden, and next time you go to dig, you got all these roots shooting right across through your vegetables. And what they're doing is they're anchoring the bamboo so that when it takes off, it has the strength, the stability to be able to cope with that incredible rapid growth. And so, success happens like this. Sometimes in life we don't see anything happening. It appears like, the seeds that we're planting aren't developing, aren't taking off. We're trying to help people, and it just seems like we're not getting anywhere. But then all of a sudden, things start shooting up. In fact, I saw this analogy being shared about businesses, because they found that on the 5th year, usually that's when a business takes off, and year number 5. Okay. And there we have the tree. Isn't that amazing? It's up to several inches thick at the base. You can make furniture out of it. Now, if you look at this little herb here, you see it's growing in pretty unusual circumstances, right? Have you ever seen a tree grow out of a crack in a rock? We just went for a walk a few days ago over at the Red River Gorge, and I saw this tree just on the side of the cliff, this growing straight out of a rock. Well, you probably thought, wow, isn't that amazing? A little seed just got in this crack, and it had enough nutrition to give it what it needed to grow. Well, you may be forgiven for thinking that, but let me just share with you that the seed wasn't in the crack. The seed actually made the crack. Okay. This is a first shoot of the seed. It's called a radical. Anyone here been called a radical before? All right. Well, the radical is like an anchor, but it's like one of those. Seen those workmen digging the road, and they get these hammer drills. You seen that? And it cracks the cement. Well, these shoots, should I say, they can crack through rock. Isn't that incredible? In fact, here we have a picture here of several inches of asphalt over the top of a herb called shepherd's purse. Now, shepherd's purse, if you didn't have Roundup, it would actually recycle the cement back into the soil. Isn't that amazing? The power of a radical. Okay, incredible. So, when it's just a seed under the ground, several inches underground, it has no light whatsoever. But this seed has the power to go through rock, to go through cement, and form a plant out of that little seed. I just think that's utterly incredible. So I would say don't let anything get in the way of your growth. And sometimes it feels like we're in the dark, but the best place to get strength is when you're in the dark. Yeah, that's the time where God is preparing you to be a radical, to penetrate through those rocks. Like the tomb of Jesus could not keep him from coming out of the grave, could it? All right, the Bible says the base things of the world and the things which are despised has God chosen. Yes, and the things which are not. Actually, it said to bring to naught that which is. In other words, God's chosen the really humble things of nature. And I can't think of anything in nature more humble than a lowly herb. And we go out there with our weed whackers and we just go and get rid of all that nettle, which is the most nutritious food on the planet. And we just dig up all those dandelions that could help detoxify our liver. And we run over that red clover that can help prevent us with cancer. And we do all these things to all these plants that we have no idea what they do. And yet, I tell people herbs are like Jesus. They're often the last resort. And they're often available, universally available for us. And yet we just tread them underfoot. We don't care for them. We don't even notice them. Jesus talked about a mustard seed. Right? He said it would grow to the largest of trees. Right? This is a mustard seed tree, by the way. I was given a mustard seed when I was in Japan from a friend who went to Israel. And the seeds were so small, they were smaller than a grain of sand. In fact, you could barely make it out with a naked eye. And that is what develops into a tree that can be hundreds of feet across. Okay. Yes, don't underestimate the power of influence. All right. In the Old Testament, many scriptures that talk about herbs. In fact, there's over 100 Bible references to herbs and spices. In fact, if you include the oils, there would be around 600 references in the Bible. 2 out of the 3 first Christmas presents were herbs. Okay. And they were a little bit more expensive than what we have today, right? In fact, some people think the word gold should be turmeric because it was it was so expensive. I wouldn't go that far, but nevertheless, in the days of Jesus, these things were extremely expensive. Frankincense, even today, a little tiny bottle of frankincense you pay $100 for. So they are quite expensive, but not as expensive as they used to be. But there's a lot of scriptural references for herbs. Now, the Bible is not a herb book. It's not a textbook for herbalists, but nevertheless, it does shed light on many of the herbs that we use from day to day. What is herbal medicine? Okay, it's sometimes referred to as herbalism or botanical medicine. It's the use of herbs for their therapeutic or medicinal value. A herb is a plant or plant part valued for its medicinal, aromatic, or savory qualities. Herb plants produce and contain a variety of chemical substances that act upon the body. Just think of a herb. The simplest definition out there is a medicinal plant. That's what a herb is, a medicinal plant. and there's different parts of the plant that can be used. Not all parts of the plant can be used. In fact, some parts of medicinal plants are very toxic. We'll get into a little bit about toxicity issues a little later. According to the World Health Organization, about 80% of the world's population uses herbal remedies at some point. We in America, although we've been ahead in many areas when it comes to herbal medicine, we're sort of quite far behind actually when it comes to understanding their benefits and how to use them intelligently. There's a lot of other countries that are way ahead in their understanding on herbal remedies. Even a lot of modern world countries like Switzerland and England and Germany. Germans are way ahead of us when it comes to understanding herbal remedies. Sometimes when I, teaching, I have a few doctors listening, and they may say to me afterwards, "Well, there's not a lot of clinical studies on herbs," and there's a physician's desk reference that has all the medications, or a lot of medications, I say, that pharmacists use and doctors recommend. Well, there's also one for herbs as well, and it's just as thick, and it's just as got more information, actually more information on the herbs than drugs. In fact, the herbs that I'll be talking about have usually several hundred to several thousand clinical studies done on each one of them. In fact, the most studied drug has only 285 studies. It's a antidepressant, and a lot of studies have been done on these, and we appreciate that, but we also want to use common sense, and we also want to use what works, because sometimes clinical studies can be biased one way or the other, and I always think that when you put everything together, you get a better approach when it comes to herbal remedies, because 76% of studies done on herbs are done by drug companies. And do you think they're going to have a positive spin on their competition? Okay, I don't think so. All right, so I always read at the end of the study, read if there's any conflict of interest. All right, that's important to know. All right, we have different categories of herbs. We have herbs that are called demulcent herbs. These are herbs that are very slippery and slimy. So you see a few of them here: licorice root, marshmallow, slippery elm. You've got aloe vera and different ones there. And they can really help with the GI system. Okay. And so these are things that are very soothing to the membrane, the mucous membranes in the body. And in fact, licorice, by the way, is a category of herb that's, well, actually, it's a herb that's in every category. So it's bitter, it's sweet, it's an adaptogen, it's also a demulcent, it's aromatic, it's like all things to all men, like the Apostle Paul. So it's got a little bit of characteristic of all different types. But you read here, demulcent herbs help soothe and protect inflamed tissues by secreting relaxing fluids. They're used to also help the respiratory tract. For example, coughing. And often some of these mucilaginous herbs are bronchial dilators as well. Not all of them, but some are. I had a lady who was coughing for 12 months straight. Okay, 12 months, night and day. It was so bad, her husband couldn't sleep in the same bed with her. In fact, the same bedroom with her. And so we offered a herb for that. It was a mucilaginous herb, and it helped, and her cough disappeared. So it says here, common demulcent herbs used by herbalists are licorice, marshmallow, slippery elm, and fennel, and they work very well. And I'll talk a little bit about the safety a little bit later on, because it's important to know safety of herbs as well as the effectiveness of herbs. And then we have aromatic herbs as well. These are herbs that are very pungent, they're very strong smelling herbs, and they often work on the neuroendocrine system. They're very supportive to the immune system, and I'll talk a bit more about them later. We have another category of herbs called adaptogens, which can also fall into that category. Bitter herbs these are excellent herbs for digestion. You probably remember when the children of Israel were just about to leave Egypt, they roasted a lamb late at night, and God told them to eat bitter herbs. Well, why was that? Why eat bitter herbs? Because bitter herbs will help improve hydrochloric acid, which will help with breaking down protein. So if you've got to run out your country late at night, at midnight, and you've eaten a big meal of lamb, you probably want to have some bitter herbs. All right, so this will improve digestion. It will also help with elimination. It helps with intestinal peristalsis. It can help with bile flow. The GI tract is greatly helped. In fact, bitter herbs are often used to make you vomit. If something's gone in your stomach and you want to get it out, just try a bitter herb. It will work pretty quickly. Not all bitter herbs actually make you vomit. If you've got something in your stomach that just needs a little digestion, bitter herbs can get it out the other way. So let's look at some principles of herbal medicine. All right. Now, I just want to say off the bat that even though I study herbs and I promote them, I am aware they're not a panacea. We're not at the tree of life yet. Okay, so often when you hear people speak in different areas of health, it becomes all-consuming. It's like it's the only thing that's going to help you. Well, herbs are actually a part of, they come into the category of good nutrition. All right, so there's nothing miraculous about a herb. All they're doing is giving back to your body what it's lacked. All right, herbs are very high in minerals, they're very high in vitamins, and they're very high in phytochemistry. So there's no sort of, witchcraft going on, sorcery here. It's just giving the body what it basically is lacking in the disease process. So herbs must be preserved to maintain effectiveness. Everything has a shelf life. And ladies, when you go to the supermarket and you're looking for your avocados, you grab one, you feel it, you may smell it, you look at it, see if it's got any blemishes. And if you put your thumb right into it, it's probably not going to last for, well, it's gone past that expiration time. And so herbs also have an expiration date. So they have about, on average, 12 months. So if it's a leaf, you will last around 12 months. Now, it depends on how you preserve it. If you expose it to light, you can lose pretty much every property of that herb within 3 months, direct exposure to light. And I prove this in my store because I used to have herbs that were exposed to light under my containers that were actually protecting the herb. And within 3 months, you wash out the herb. The color would go. If the color's gone, the properties are gone. The medicine's gone, right? If it doesn't smell, the properties are gone. If it doesn't taste, the properties are gone. All right, so if you've been left some herbs in your grandmother's will, and they're in the basement for 12 years, there's a good chance. I mean, it may keep them right to your grandma, but they're not going to do you much good, right? Okay, so just make a note of that. And then if it's a root, bark, or berry, it's up to 5 years. All right, it has more protective value because it's in a different form that's harder for the elements to penetrate. And if it's a powdered root or bark or berry, then it's around 3 years. Okay, so herbal teas and extracts are the best way to take herbs. And why is that? Because they quickly pass in your bloodstream. So if you take a herb as a tea, it will actually not require any enzymatic action to break it down. It's already in a water solution and it will just go straight through into the bloodstream. If it's an extract, it's the same thing. But if you put it in a powder and you put powder directly in your stomach, then the body has to initiate some enzymatic action. Usually hydrochloric acid gets secreted, and that will pull out the properties out of the herb. So if you take the herb at the wrong time, or if you have weak gastric acid, you're not going to get that much benefit. In fact, studies show about 38 to 52% on average for absorption. That's from powdered supplements, right? Which largely is powdered herbs. And be careful where you get your herbs from. There was a study that came out, the very popular supermarket that you all go to at some point. Won't name names, but 1/4 of all the supplements that were sold didn't even have one of the original ingredients listed on the packet in the product. All right, 1 out of 4. All right, be careful from products from China. Okay, be careful where you get your sources from. And by the way, I'll tell you where I buy mine from. Happy to do that. You can go direct to them. I buy from Mountain Rose Herbs, and I also buy from Star West Botanicals. Now, Star West Botanicals doesn't sell everything organic. I always only buy organic. There is maybe an exception where I use wild-crafted herbs, and wild-crafted herbs aren't technically certified organic, but they are organic from the view of they're not sprayed. All right, and those are herbs that are directly picked out of the forest. But they have great herbs and great quality. So those are the companies that I would, I use, and check them out. Since COVID, things have gone up. I'd say the price of herbs has doubled since COVID, generally. I remember when I started hearing rumors coming out about the virus, I started stocking up on elderberry. It went from $11 a pound to $11 an ounce, like in a few days. Because people like me were buying truckloads of it, So get herbs while you can, and also there's a app you can put on your phone. Let me tell you this: it's called Seek. That's SEEK, Seek, and you can just download this app, and you can go up to any plant, and it will identify it for you. Now, it may not tell you what it does, but it tells you what it is, and then you just keep the picture of it, and you just go online and find out what it does. But it's really good if you're going to do any walks through nature and you want to know what's available, maybe even in your own backyard. It's amazing how many herbs are around us. We have no idea. When I was up in Maine not so long ago, I went around the medical clinic where I was working, and there was about 100 different herbs within 2 blocks of the medical clinic. And if you know what you're looking for, you can quickly identify them, cultivate them. A lot of times you can just pick them straight out the forest, and you're not violating any laws. There are some herbs that are there are some herbs that are protected from cultivating, or should I say harvesting. Things like ginseng, for example. If you pick ginseng, you have to replace it with another ginseng plant, so that way you're not taking everything out of nature. Okay, herbal dosage. So let's talk about dosages for a minute. Now, there's no one in North America. There's no doctor, there's no pharmacist, there's no chemist, there's no scientist that can actually prescribe herbs. Did you know that? There's no one that has the legal authority to prescribe a herb in the United States. All right, check it out. Okay, this may come as a shock. And even doctors can't do it, medical doctors. So how we get around this is we say, if it were me, I would take this. I would do this. That's how we get around it. And so if you hear me saying that, if you have a question on dosage, now dosage is regulated by what's on the bottle. So the people that manufacture it do have what's called a therapeutic range. So they'll put 1 to 3 servings, or 1 ml to 3 ml, something like that. So they'll give you a range, but they don't give exact amounts. So This is what I would do, okay? Because supplements are based on a 150-pound person. So usually one serving is for mild or prophylactic, 2 is for moderate, and 3 is for severe. That's generally, I mean, there are exceptions to that. I'm just giving you a general guide here, but that's just what is often um, recommended as far as dosages. That's what I would do, okay? All right. All right. So also, you got to keep in mind the condition that you're dealing with. So, for example, we make a pain formula for people that don't want to be on heavy pain meds. Um, and what people don't realize about pain meds is that for certain people, they are very addictive. All right, and you can quickly get a life addiction to some of these medications if you haven't got the right help to get you through them. And the downside of the pain medications, and I'm not saying you shouldn't take them, but you need to be aware of the risks. I mean, if I get hit by a car on the way home, you can give me a shot of morphine, but at the same time, for chronic disease, they fall far short. And I heard this from a pain scientist. He said, if at all possible, don't get on them in the first place if you can avoid it, because it actually doesn't lessen pain, it increases your toleration to pain. And so you actually need more and more as you go on. And you can never get enough of what you don't need. So your body always gets addicted to what it doesn't need. Have you noticed that? We don't get addicted to apples or carrot sticks, right? Sugar, we get addicted to things that bring some spice to the life, right? Okay. But God wants to fill our needs, satiate us. And that's the difference. I grew up on junk food. I told you, I never ate a healthy meal in my life. I would eat a whole big pizza in one go. I'd eat a bar of chocolate in one go. But I always go back for more. But I never felt satisfied. Have you had that feeling? Yes. Whereas God's plan is to satiate us. And there are some herbs that can help us tremendously when it comes to pain relief. I'll share a little bit more about that later. Also, some people have a sensitivity, more sensitivity to herbs. So if you have more sensitivity to drugs, you're going to usually have a high sensitivity to herbs. So if that's you, you just start. I would start on the lowest dosage. And sometimes we even go below the lowest dosage, because people can have quite moderate or high reactions to low dosages if they're too sensitive. Herbs are best used if the cause of the disease is ascertained. This is a very important principle because there are many different causes for the same condition, right? It's usually a, a number of different factors bearing down to create the same, or to cause the same problem. Case in point. So let's look at sleep. There are over 100 different causes for sleep problems. All right, we just think of stress, but it could also be nutritional, right? Could be lack of tryptophan or serotonin or melatonin or vitamin D, right? Or magnesium. There's a lot of different chemicals that our body needs to help us to sleep properly. It could be a metabolic issue. It could be hormonal, sex hormones playing a part. It could be the digestive system. We raided the fridge at 12 o'clock at night. Can't go to bed. It could be the bills up here. It could be the next door neighbor flashing their torch through a bedroom window. So many things. So if you understand the cause, then you can get a better directive as to what herbs can help you with that problem. All right. So even if you don't know specifically, if you know the system which it's in, or which is having symptomatic manifestation, then you can be more understanding in your approach. Okay. So if you think it's more stress or anxiety, then you're going to use things that are nervines. Okay, so oat straw would fall in that category. Okay, California poppy, things like passion flower, valerian root, um, things like skullcap, things that feed the nerves. Okay, those are nervines. All right, if it's hormonal, you may need to look at other things like red clover or black cohosh or vitex. So there's different categories of herbs that can help with the same problem, but coming at it from the point of view of helping offset the cause of that condition. So you've got to find out the cause. This is really, really important to getting good results. If you don't know the cause, and you don't know even the system, if you're sort of at a loss to what system's been effective, then start with the ones that are the most effective. Okay, that would be valerian and hops. Two herbs, if you take together, seem to have the best results for general sleep disorders, but it's not specific. All right, so hops can help you if you have an overactive brain. Anyone here just can't switch their brain off at night? All right, you may want to look at hops. Now, they have that in beer. I'm not saying drink beer, okay? In fact, they thought it was the alcohol that made people go to sleep. They did some studies on the hops. They found it was actually the hops that made people go to sleep. It had a chemical called lupulin. It slows down brainwave activity. And so it puts you in a deeper state of sleep. So this is important to understand, because this is why a lot of people aren't getting the results they long to get, because they're not being specific. They're not using the right herb for the problem. And they may not even be using enough of the herb, or the form in which will give enough of the herb that they can get the adequate medicinal value that they need to offset that problem. This is a big one. Herbs are not a substitute for poor lifestyle habits. All right. So if you're eating under the golden arches every day and you're taking some dandelion root for digestion, it's not really going to fix the problem. So what the herb is going to do, now, there are many times where the person continues a poor lifestyle and the herb is still helping, but it is working directly against what you're doing. And so it is better to take the approach of changing the lifestyle so you don't have to use these things, because the herbs will actually work better for you when you're not creating the conditions that they have to war against. All right? So healthy lifestyle is the key. Proper nutrition. Make sure, as a society, we have the worst nutrition in just about anywhere in the world in North America. If you look at these food pyramids, all right, God warned us about going back to Egypt, Watch out for pyramids, okay? You can invert those pyramids and you'll get a better idea what to put in your body. But anyway, you want to eat lots of fruits, vegetables, legumes, grains, nuts, seeds, things that are anti-inflammatory. Do you know everything that God has given us to eat is anti-inflammatory? Anything that's processed, when you process it, it becomes pro-inflammatory. Okay, depending on how you process it and how much you process it. Like wheat, wheat is more inflammatory in nature now, not because it's inherently evil of itself, but because of the process it has to go through to get to a loaf of bread. Herbs should be used intelligently and in therapeutic levels deemed appropriate for the condition. Intelligently is the optimum word there. Herbs are not to be relied upon continually unless they're for nutritional support. Okay, so that means you don't have to take a herb for the rest of your life. It's like if you break an arm and you put a cast on it, you just need the cast there until the bone is set, and then you take it off. It's the same with herbs, unless you're taking it for nutritional support. And these are called nutritive tonics. Okay, these are things that are high nutritional value. Things like nettle, things like barley grass or oat straw or alfalfa, wheatgrass, those types of things. Things that you just want to use to supplement your nutritional um, base. So let me see here. Okay, does this stop working? Okay, it's frozen up on me here. Maybe the battery's dead. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, it's that time we should have a break. Okay. Let's take a break. Let's take a 10-minute break and get some oxygen. Okay, we got it now? All right. Oh, so I have to let you. Is this working now? I, I did it twice. All right. I'll tell you what. Let's have a break and we'll try to sort this out. And we'll be back in 10 minutes. How's that? All right. Yeah. I don't. Maybe the battery it needs replacing here. How you doing? Good. Good. It started. Yeah, flashing. So, is that working now? Yeah. Okay. So it doesn't need a battery? No. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Just.
The
Yeah.
audio was really bad.
Was it?
The audio was really bad for the
Oh.
sanctuary.
Oh, I
I
see.
think that'd be right for your face. Is there a way maybe we can clip this on the back here?
Sure. Yeah.
You go ahead and put it back on your head.
Okay.
I just want to put this so it doesn't
Yeah. Yeah.
slide down like that.
Sure. Yeah. It didn't
It's
sound.
caught.
It
That's what
didn't.
it was. It was caught
It
here.
was caught. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It didn't. That. Okay. Testing. Yeah. All right. Okay. Testing. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. 1, 2, 3. How's that?
We'll try that. The audio is very low back here for some
Yeah.
reason.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. All right. How's that going?
Maybe add
Just
maybe
keep
add
talking.
You,
All right.
You can turn it off.
Okay.
We will return in about 1 minute, so let's take our seats. About 1 minute, we'll get started again. Please gather back. Less than a minute now.
Okay, is this all right? We're on. Okay. All right. Now, I wanted to share with you. This is, I guess, where modern medicine and traditional herbal medicine sort of separates, and that is when it comes to this: the whole is greater than the sum of the individual parts. So, what does that mean? It means that the herb, with all its phytochemistry and the minerals and the vitamins in there, has greater effects, and it's more beneficial for human physiology than isolating a phytochemical out of that and concentrating it. All right. Now, on average, a medicinal plant has around 5 to 10,000 phytochemicals. 5 to 10,000 phytochemicals. Now, scientists have a struggle finding two chemicals interact how they play in the body. But can you imagine trying to work out how 5,000 chemicals can interact in the body? It's impossible, isn't it? You couldn't figure it out. Now, it takes more than a good soprano to make a choir. And it takes more than a good phytochemical to make a medicine. And I'm bringing this out why I'm bringing this out is because that when you isolate anything in nature and you concentrate it, you create an imbalance in the body somewhere else. Okay? Even your vitamins. All right? There are limits to how much your body can use. Vitamin C, if you take more than 2 grams of vitamin C, it will affect phagocytosis. And yet we have thousands of people every day take megadoses of vitamin C. Anything in nature has a balance. Okay, one of the laws of health is temperance. All right, temperance is partaking, eating moderately that which is good and abstaining from things that are harmful. Whereas what the world's term has come up with, a counterfeit to that, is moderation. All right, now you can eat a lot of things moderately and create problems. I can eat a moderate McDonald's cheeseburger with a moderate amount of chocolate sauce and dessert and a moderate amount of alcohol on ice cream. That's all moderate, and it adds up to a lot of junk. So I don't like to use the word moderation only in context to that which is good. So in God's pharmacy, He has put in the plants this synergy, a combination that is way beyond our scientific brains can work out. So you could take curcumin out of turmeric and you can concentrate it and you could have some effects. It can take away pain, it can reduce inflammation, but it will metabolize in 20 minutes because the body will degrade it because it hasn't got the other phytochemicals to help balance it and slowly release it and to offset its effects so that it will actually last longer in the body and do a greater job. In fact, you can take curcumin out of turmeric and it's still anti-inflammatory. You're only focusing on one phytochemical. All right, so I believe that God is wiser than all the wise men on the earth. Amen. Okay. And he knows things that we don't know and will never know. And he's put things in place in nature for a reason. And when we start to tamper with it, we may make some patent that could make a few $1 billion, but it may not work as good as what God has created. In fact, I don't know anything that man has made that is as good as what he has made. Now, keep in mind that every herb has a major action and it has many minor actions. All right, so you always get the herb. We say herb, you say herb. All right, so that's my English Australian coming in there. So I hope I didn't confuse anyone. Okay. I was at the post office the other day. I said, I'm from the American Herb Shop. He said, American Head Shop? What is that? I said, no, I don't work for ISIS. Okay. All right. So let me explain something that, hang on, we've gone a bit too far here. So here you see St. John's wort. St. John's wort has a major effect in helping with depression. Mild to moderate depression, not severe depression, mild to moderate depression. But it has many other effects. It's good for pain relief, for nerves. It's good for healing the intestinal mucosa. It's got antiviral action. It can help with certain hormonal conditions such as menstrual cramps. But that's not where it shines the most. Where it shines the most is in helping with depression. Okay, so if you're going to take something for these other things, like helping menstrual cramps, I wouldn't use St. John's wort as my first line of defense, even though it can do that, because it's a minor effect. It's not what it's created for as a major action. It can help with those things if those things are connected with depression as a side effect. It can help with that. Okay, there are simple herbs and roots that every family may use for themselves, not need to call a physician any sooner than they would call a lawyer over the subject. Yes, this is God's methods. Herbs that grow for the benefit of man. A little handful of herbs kept and steeped for sudden use, sudden ailments have served tenfold, yea, 100-fold better purposes than all the drugs hidden under mysterious names and dealt out to the sick. Now, I was going to hide this, but I can't hide it from you. Anyway, I wanted to find out how many people have died from herbs. So I called the Poison Control Center. I said, how many people died this year from herbs? And they said, oh, I can't tell you. So I thought, okay, well, I'm stonewalled here. Maybe I can find it online. Anyway, I had to go back in the archives, back. The last date I could find was 2008. I know it's 15 years old. I don't like to present research that's 15 years old, but I think it still holds up for the thought I wanted to convey today, that there was, out of 60 billion supplements consumed in the United States, 0 deaths from herbal remedies. This is according to the Poison Control Center. Now, you could say, well, there was reports maybe that didn't get reported. Yes, we can't go with those. We can only go with what we have. But there were 0 deaths, 21 major reactions, 527 moderate reactions, 603 minor reactions. The point I'm trying to make here is that herbs are very forgiving, and it's very hard. In fact, all the time I've been involved in herbal medicines, I could count on one hand the amount of side effects I've seen, and they've been mild side effects, like a rash on the face because it interfered with a drug medication. One lady got tachycardia. She took too much ginseng. In fact, I had two ladies didn't follow my advice. I gave them the amount, and she said a little was good, therefore a lot must be better. Okay. Ended up finding out that's not the case. All right. So what I'm saying here is that out of everything you can put in your body that's got nutritional value, herbs are the most forgiving. Even if it comes to food, you look at there's several hundred thousand. Last I looked, actually, it was over 400,000 food poisonings every year that require hospitalization. Now, I know people aren't living off herbs, and I know they're not having plates of herbs, but these mainly are from people that have left their herbal supplement somewhere. Their child got them, and they took the lid off and put 10 in their mouth and this type of thing. Now, there are some herbs that are not safe to use. All right, I don't want anyone to think there aren't. In fact, the herbs that are often recommended the most are some of the most dangerous herbs to take. And they end up in the hospital as a result. Some of the most dangerous herbs are those that are often recommended. Okay, for example, green tea. Yeah, I'll get to that a little bit later. Green tea. Technically, coffee is a herb. Do you know how many ER visits every year from coffee or caffeine? Let's call it caffeine. 4.5 million ER visits in the United States every year just from caffeine. 4.5 million. All right, and green tea has half the caffeine of coffee, and I'll give you some reasons why we don't recommend those herbs. All right, contraindications. You got to be careful. Herb-drug interactions. Now, there's about 46 categories of herb-drug interactions, and I'm not going to list them all. But let me give you some basic principles. All right, if you're in a critical situation and you're on a medication that's stabilizing you in a critical condition, don't take herbs at the same time. All right? So if your blood pressure is 200 over 120 and you take lisinopril to bring down your blood pressure, and then you think, oh, I just went to a herb seminar. I heard hawthorn berry is good for my blood pressure. I'm going to take that as well. And so you're taking two agents now. You're taking the lisinopril and the herb at the same time, and your blood pressure goes, woo, really low. And it's maybe 120. Now, for the average person, that'll be good. But if your blood pressure is too high and you drop too quickly, too soon, you can end up with a stroke. Because blood pressure is a two-edged sword. The body's trying to save your life by getting the blood up there, whatever cost, whatever pressure it requires to get it up to the brain or wherever else in the body. So it's helping you. It's saving your life, but at the same time, it can cause damage. It can cause aneurysms, right? It can cause multiple conditions, organ damage. A lot of people are suffering kidney disease because the blood pressure is killing their nephrons. So what you do is you wait till you're in a stable situation. You can still help people. You help them with their diet, you help them with their exercise, you get them on a de-stressful program, not distress, right? Yeah. One of the benefits of church on your health, one of the greatest benefits is community. Having community, it has profound impacts on your health, on your immune system, circulation. They've done multiple studies on this of people that have community in their church and have people praying for them. It's not a placebo, it's real. People are experiencing the effects of being in community, and it has profound impacts upon the physiology of the person. And health is not just one-sided, right? It's not just when we talk about health, we don't just talk about nutrition. There's many components that go into making a healthy individual. So if you go on I don't know if anyone goes on WebMD. Anyone like to check WebMD out? But you'll find 5 herbs up here that are on the danger list, right? Such as comfrey, such as pennyroyal, such as kava root, such as St. John's wort. Um, Herbs that actually have great track records. In fact, St. John's wort, I couldn't find any person, any recorded clinical case of anyone dying from St. John's wort, ever. And yet it's up there as one of the most dangerous herbs. And it has much greater effects than placebo and also the most commonly used SSRIs. Chaparral is another one. The liver toxicity. There was only one recorded case in the history of modern medicine that found that it could cause in one individual a problem with their liver. So don't take it. It could doom your liver because one person took too much tea. Comfrey is another one. There was actually 4 cases of liver toxicity recorded with comfrey, 2 in America, 1 in England. I think the other one was in New Zealand or Australia. And when you read the clinical reports, you find that they had huge amounts of comfrey. And so the FDA went in and cleaned out the comfrey out of the health food stores back in the 1980s, 1990s. When I had a store in Michigan, it was illegal for me to sell comfrey. I could sell marijuana, but I couldn't sell comfrey. I had to meet in a dark alley somewhere. Okay. So, comfrey is one of the safest herbs to take. Let me tell you this. They demonize a alkaloid called pyrrolizidine alkaloid. Now, there are 10 different types of pyrrolizidine alkaloids, but the comfrey they use to inject in a rat in a laboratory to destroy the liver is from the Russian comfrey, and you would need to take 3,000 pounds of the comfrey in your backyard to get the same effect that caused that rat to have liver failure. So, you can make studies. 2 reasons why there's clinical studies. One is to get funding, and 2 is to promote a product. That's usually what it is. Okay, so you got to look behind the study. Okay. I even question some herbal studies, depending on who did it. Kava root. Okay, kava was demonized as well because there were 30 cases of liver damage. It all happened in the same year, 2001. That should tip you off on something. There was a contaminated bunch of kava, and the peelings are toxic, and it got in with the root, and there were 30 cases liver toxicity. So kava has suffered a hit to its reputation since then. But kava is very, very good for anxiety. It's very good for insomnia that is caused by anxiety. It's one of the best ones. But do not take this with alcohol. In fact, do not take any herb with alcohol. All right. When you go and get a tincture out of the store, they use up to 180% vodka. That's 180% alcohol. You didn't think there was 180%, did you? Okay. 180% alcohol from GMO vodka. All right. 1 tablespoon of that is like drinking a whole can of beer. That will knock grandma off a rocking chair. Yes, avoid it like the plague. Okay. Pennyroyal was another one they said do not take, but they confused pennyroyal herb with the essential oil. You should not take pennyroyal essential oil internally. It can cause seizures. But as a tea, it's very effective and very safe. There are two herbs here. These are two Chinese herbs. Okay, this is Chernwu and Kenwu. They cause 70% of the side effects of herbs, just these two herbs. So we don't use these herbs. In fact, really only Chinese practitioners use these, and I in particular do not agree with using these herbs. There are 86.6% of adverse effects blamed on 14 plants, two of which are licorice root and soybeans. Now, you didn't think that soybean was categorized as a herb. Well, think of what is a medicinal plant. It's a herb. Okay. There are some problems with soybeans. Four different causes of problems with soybeans. One is GMO soy. That's one of the big ones. Second one is soy isolates, where they concentrate the soy to 90% protein. I remember I was in Japan. I had some students over there. They used to love to take you out. So they took me out to this tofu restaurant. I didn't even know there was such a thing. They took me out to this tofu restaurant. Everything was tofu. You get a block of tofu, and then you get tofu soup. You get tofu ice cream, tofu, whatever tofu you want, it's there. And it's the first time I heard my kidneys screaming at me afterwards. 90% protein doesn't do too well on the kidneys. I mentioned green tea. 2 billion cups of this get consumed every day. And I grew up on this type of tea. In fact, what's interesting, and this is no condemnation for anyone from these countries, but green tea drinking countries tend to have more a harder time in going against the social norms. In other words, they're more socially integrated and they go along with the social culture of things. It's hard for them to break away from that. When I was in Japan, it's hard to get invited to a Japanese and without them giving you green tea. It's actually a religion in Japan, tea drinking. Yeah. But it's high in aluminum. It's high in tannins that block iron absorption. So it can lead to anemia. It's high in fluoride. There's about 40,000 cases of cancer in the United States every year just from fluoride. And there's a typo there. It should be 20 to 50, not 5, 20 to 50 milligrams of caffeine per cup. And it also knocks out a chemical in the brain called GABA, which is gamma-aminobutyric acid. Basically, it's like knocking the brakes out of your car. Would you drive a car with no brakes? All right, so this happens to people who drink alcohol. When you drink alcohol, you're not in your right mind because you don't have the checks and balances. What you think becomes what you do. So you have no inhibition. So it's because chemically you've knocked out GABA. All right? When I was a teenager, we used to have these Great Dane dogs. Have you seen Great Danes? They're pretty big. We had one, he was 36 inches to his shoulder. His name was Max. When he stood on his back legs, he was almost eyeball to eyeball with me. And he was like a horse. And when you took Max for a walk, if he saw a cat and you didn't have a good hold on Max, you'll be grass skiing on your face. So you either had to have control of the dog or the dog had control of you. All right. So when you drink a lot of this stuff, it knocks out GABA. So So you don't have control of the leash anymore. It's whatever you feel like doing, you do it. Whatever you think of, it could be nonsense, you just say it. All right? Because GABA is knocked out. Actually, GABA is released when you're tempted and you you actually say no. When you say no to temptation, GABA is released in the brain. Did you know that? Yeah. And it blocks the temptation. That's why you're not tempted today from what you were, or should I say, you're not going through the feelings of temptation today that you had like 30 years ago, because those impulses get blocked. We don't get tempted for like indefinitely, do we? In fact, I used to give stop smoking seminars. And to stop smoking, it requires you to endure 10 minutes of temptation. You get these waves. It comes back every few hours, but you get these waves where you've got 10 minutes of temptation, strong urge to get a cigarette. So you have to keep your mind occupied with other things for those 10 minutes. And if you know it's just going to last for 10 minutes, you can get through it, right? You can get through anything if you know it's going to last 10 minutes, right? You can almost hang on a cross for 10 minutes. And if you know you've only got 10 minutes, you could endure it, right? So it's the same with every temptation you have. It only lasts a short amount of time. But what makes it shorter is when you say no. No, I'm not going to do that. Remember Daniel, it says Daniel purposed in his heart he wouldn't defile himself. And a purpose means a unyielding resolve. So an unyielding resolve means that your body is going to secrete GABA, and it means that you will actually have all these chemicals that cause that craving to dissipate. Chemically, they will be resisted through GABA. Isn't that amazing? It's good news because we don't have to constantly endure these feelings. It's wonderful. So avoid green tea if you want to keep your GABA in good shape. Doctors and herbs. Okay, do you know a lot of doctors are closet herbalists? Yes. It says here, in one study revealed of 192 physicians interviewed, most 60.4% believed that herbal remedies were beneficial to health. 78 physicians, or 40.6%, admitted having used herbs in the past, and 60 of these, or 76.9%, were satisfied with the outcome. And yet, you wouldn't think that was the case if you went to a doctor. Most people are reluctant to tell their doctor that they're taking herbs. Why do you think that is? They're afraid of reproach. That doctor's going to be upset with me. I'm not taking his Tylenol. All right, nearly 1/3 of Americans use herbs. Unfortunately, a study in New England Journal of Medicine found that 70% of people taking herbal medicines, most of whom were well educated and had a higher than average income, were reluctant to tell their doctors they use complementary and alternative medicine. All right. So, I'm going to fly through some of these. By the way, this is aloe vera. You all know that. Very good for burns. Have an aloe vera plant in your home. It's very good. In fact, you can rub it in. If you have some arthritic pain, just rub in some aloe vera. It's antiviral. Don't get it right at the leaf. You get the gel. Take the gel out. Doesn't taste very good, I must admit, but it is very healing for the mucous membranes of the body. Salves are another excellent way to get some benefit from herbs. In fact, I think Karen has got some. Where's Karen? Is she here? And Randall, they've got some salves in the back. We have these workshops every now and again. Actually, I was just doing one in Atlanta with 30 people. We had to bring a whole trailer load. Hey, there she is, this lady here, Karen at the back. And we had 30 people cooking at the same time. Can you imagine that? We had bring saucepans and filters and pitchers and burners and solar powered generators, and we were all making salves together and making herbal extracts. It was a lot of fun. But the salves, like you see here, they are made of beeswax. This one in particular is made of calendula infused in olive oil with some beeswax. And for those who don't know, calendula or pot marigold, there's 14 different types of marigold. Pot marigold, it grows in your back. Well, you can grow it in your backyard, and it's very good for the skin. If you have eczema, psoriasis, if you have shingles, we've used it for shingles, burnt skin, inflamed skin, infectious disorders, fungal conditions. Use calendula. It works very well. And then we have some cayenne. This is hot stuff, right? Cayenne. Now, do you know that cayenne can save a life if you're internally hemorrhaging? Yes. If you have blood loss internally, you can take cayenne and it will cauterize those damaged blood vessels within 60 seconds. There was even a case of a gentleman who had aortic rupture. For those who don't know, your aorta is the largest blood vessel. It branches out straight from the heart. So when you last pump through the left myocardial contraction, you end up with a huge amount of blood that goes through the aorta. When the aorta ruptures, you've got a few minutes at best before you're dead. And cayenne saved a gentleman's life who had an aortic rupture. Now, it's been used for heart attacks and strokes. You can use it for heart attacks. In fact, I had a lady call me just a few weeks ago, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and she had a heart attack. She said she took the cayenne. She had the paramedics came and got her, took her to hospital, but she said by the time they got to me, I was fine. I still checked myself in, but she was fine. She saw the benefits of it. So cayenne will vasodilate. So it's a great way. Even if your heart has stopped beating, what people don't realize is there's a lot of blood in the capillary network that if you can cause that to move, you can actually cause a greater extension of your time before the paramedics come. And how do you take it? You can take it through the best way to take it is as an extract. If you don't have an extract, just put the powder in water. Do not take powder directly in your mouth. Just want to make that clear. Do not put cayenne powder in your mouth. Okay, it will asphyxiate you. All right. So what cayenne will do is it will cause the blood vessels to the blood to accelerate through the blood vessels, and it will cause vasodilation of the blood vessels. It will basically help to continue the oxygenation in the small capillary networks for a longer period of time. So it gives you more time for the paramedics to get to you. But in a lot of instances, if you have a heart attack, you won't need it. All right. But hey, you've got a few minutes before you get help on your way. Yes, take it in a glass of water. Best way to take it is shoot an extract under the tongue. That's the best way to take it. But you can go online and listen to many people's testimony of taking cayenne pepper when they've had a heart attack or stroke. And if someone you know has had one recently, make sure that they have some cayenne pepper on hand. A lot of people have heart attacks. They don't even know they're having a heart attack. A lot of people have TIAs, and they're not aware they're having that issue. But if you get the blood flowing, right, because perfect health depends on perfect circulation. And the best way to bring healing to any part of the body is to improve blood flow. And the cayenne pepper does just that. All right. So it's got great benefits to it. It is hot. Now, I'm not saying take this as a food item every day. This is used as a medicine. Um, but it has other benefits too. I remember I was flying from America to Japan, and it was a 13-hour flight. And the last 2 hours, my feet were starting to get cold. I knew I hadn't exercised, done anything to increase my circulation. So I got a cayenne salve, and I started rubbing it on my toes, and I didn't feel anything. So I thought maybe I didn't put enough on. So I got some more, and I lavished some more, and another 15 minutes went past. I didn't feel anything, and then I thought, well, maybe the salve is too old. It's gone past its use by date. So I put more on, and I lavished my feet with this stuff. It was just greasy. My feet covered in cayenne oil, and I didn't feel anything until I got off the plane, and I didn't realize at the time that sweating activates the heat properties. And so I started walking. I said to my wife, I feel my feet a little hot. And I kept walking. I said, I feel like I'm walking on fire. I have my foot in Narita Airport water fountain, trying to cool them down. Water and oil don't mix, by the way. Anyway, it burned off my skin off my feet the next day. My skin was gone, my foot. So be respectful, the cayenne, and it will take care of you. Even topically, you don't want to use too much. Just use a little bit. It will warm it up. You just want it to warm up. You don't want it to burn, feel that burning sensation. You just want it to increase the circulation. There are different heat units with cayenne pepper. So, we use the 160,000 heat units. You've had a question? Radon? Okay. With using cayenne? No, what are you asking me what to do about that? Okay. Well, I would make it as a salve. Yeah. See, the best way to help with pain is to facilitate blood flow, because you get pain chemicals that build up in that area, and they can get trapped in the vascular tissue. So you have little capillaries, and they have little openings, little doors, and sometimes they get shut down. So the blood is just sitting there, and it causes inflammation. These pain chemicals have nowhere to go, so they irritate the nerves. But salves are a great way to help with that. So cayenne salve, yeah. We use it a lot for arthritis. Arthritis. It works really good. It actually blocks substance P, which is a neurotransmitter, a pain neurotransmitter. So cayenne's very good for that. Speaking of pain, this one is very good for pain. And I got into this by, I was going to say accident, but God is not into accidents. So I say divinely led into using this herb. I had a text message one time from a wife of a friend who just had an accident with a circular saw. So he was at home, and he was holding a piece of wood with one hand and cutting it with a circular saw with the other hand. It's not a good combination. And so it ended up backfiring on him, and it went straight in his groin. And it severed his scrotum, and he was 1 millimeter away from severing his femoral artery. This is where the men cross their legs. He was in a lot of pain. And so I get this text from his wife. His wife goes home. There's this blue tape around the house. There's blood all over the floor. He's just in absolute agony. So I get this text, and I'm thinking to myself, what would I want in that situation? So I sent him a pain formula with Jamaican dogwood, and I also sent him some CBD oil and I'll get into CBD oil a little bit later. It's good for pain. It's not from marijuana, by the way. So I sent him a pain formula with Jamaican dogwood. We use it with devil's claw, turmeric root, also some licorice root and cayenne pepper. That combination. And he was on the heaviest pain-killing medication in the hospital. Wasn't touching it. And he texted me later on. He said, that stuff you sent me was amazing. He said, I'm off my pain medication. And I just want to thank you for sending that to me. And I was amazed because I thought, well, even if it just lowers it a little bit, I mean, that's better than nothing, right? But we've used it for people with cancer pain. We've used it for surgery pain, for neuralgia, toothache, all kinds of different things, and it's worked very effectively. I would like to say this: there's not one herb that works 100% of the time for 100% of people. All right, we're not there at that tree of life yet, right? But this is the closest I've found to helping with pain, and I'd say 9 times out of 10, it does work to various degrees. For some people, it just lessens the pain. For other people, the pain goes away completely. All right, so this here is called lungwort. Anyone heard of lungwort before? Also known as Pulmonaria officinalis. Now, I got into looking at this plant from when COVID came. A lot of people having respiratory issues, couldn't breathe properly, oxygen deficiency, so forth. And so when we went to Maine from Pennsylvania at the height of the, with the panic, with the lockdowns, and you couldn't. It was the last day you could get a hotel, and so we were passing through New York, and we weren't around anyone. But my wife and I, we lost a sense of taste and smell, and my wife couldn't breathe properly. And this was right on the cusp of even knowing that COVID had some correlation to that. So I thought, maybe it was the Maine air. We're in a new environment. Maybe that it was persisting. It was getting worse. And so I had some lungwort with me. She took some lungwort, and the next day she was back to normal. There was no constriction or anything like that, and so I was really thankful. But we started using it for people who had COPD conditions. I had a lady, this is no exaggeration, there was a lady who called me, and she had 85% of her lungs were completely destroyed. She had a rare condition. She was not a smoker. It was similar to fibrosis of the lungs, and her lung tissue was scarred. It was just destroyed, basically. So I said, look, I don't know if this is going to help you, but it's the best one I know. If there's any herb that can help, this is one I would recommend. So she started taking the lungwort, and would you believe that it was about a month later, she called me. She said, I went back to the doctor. I want to share this story with you. I went back to the doctor after taking it for a few weeks, and I had a scan done on my lungs, and she said the doctor couldn't believe what he saw. Now, lungs do not grow back, but they were growing back. She had new lung tissue was starting to form. Wasn't 100%, but it was enough to notice that it was actually growing back. And she was so excited, and I was so excited. And I don't know, sometimes, I think the Lord does things maybe go beyond what the herb does itself. And that may be the case. I can't say for sure, but in either case, who's the one that made the herb? God's the one that made the herb. And, the Bible says, I am the Lord that heals you. So even though you use the things that I make, he's still the one that brings about the healing process. All right, so the herb doesn't get the glory. It just transfers the glory back to its creator. And if you don't have lungwort, try some mullein. Mullein. Many times I get asked to teach emergency medicine, and I've had a few cases where I'm teaching emergency medicine where someone has an emergency the very time I'm speaking. I can tell you a few stories, but the last story I had was my daughter. I didn't expect that, but I was doing a program in Georgia at Wildwood Lifestyle Center, and I was teaching the students. And my daughter, she's only 10 years of age. She came in, and usually she's with her mother. And I was wondering why she wasn't with her mother, but I was up the front teaching the students. And so she just sat down in the pew, and then she looked over to me very anxiously, and she said, "Daddy, I can't breathe." And I went over to her, and she just collapsed in my arms. And all these thoughts going in your head, anaphylactic shock. Your mind goes a million miles an hour. But I had some mullein with me, so I gave her some mullein, and she was fine. A few minutes later, she was fine. She was just having a panic attack, and first time she ever had a panic attack. But um, you know, anyway, she was back to normal. I had another lady. She had asthma, and she was one of the students, 300-pound student. She collapsed at the second story in the dormitory. They couldn't get her out. And so we had just spent the day doing emergency medicine. And so I took up some different herbal formulas, had the students help me to help her. And she had a bronchodilator. It was not doing anything. And that's how bad it was. When your bronchodilator doesn't work, you're in big trouble. And but thankfully, in a few minutes, she was responding and started to breathe much better. Here's skullcap. This is another excellent herb. It's another nervine, and it's very good for many different conditions. It's good for anxiety, and also it doesn't. I don't think it mentions it here, but this is extremely good for seizures as well. If someone's having a seizure, give them some skullcap. It's a calmative herb. It's often used for sleep, anxiety. This is comfrey. I mentioned briefly about comfrey. This is the Symphytum officinalis. This is the one that herbalists use, and it's very, very good at healing. You can make a salve out of this. In fact, if anyone's a little squirmish, you want to look away right about now. I think I've got a slide on this. Let me see. Okay, here we go. All right, so I hope my phone never gets stolen, because there's pictures like this people send me. And anyway, this gentleman had diabetes type 2. I was very concerned about him because he had this open wound. This wasn't actually at the worst phase of it on the left here, but I was afraid it was going to become septic, and he could die pretty quickly if that happened. So I told him, I said, you need to clean that wound if you're going to use comfrey. So he cleans it every time before he applies the comfrey, and he started using the comfrey. Now this only happened just a few weeks ago, so this is fresh. You can see the one on the right here has just got a slightly open wound. It's still in the process of being healed, and this is several weeks later. But you can see what comfrey has done in the meantime. It's just helping that tissue to mend, and he was very, very thankful that this was starting to close up. Here's another excellent herb, lavender. If you ever get stressed, just go in a lavender field. You'll come back a different person. Okay, lie down with the lavender. Just putting your hands in, just smelling it will take your stress away, let alone using it. This is another excellent one, feverfew. If you've got headaches or migraines, or if you have fevers, you want to use feverfew. It's a very, very good herb to take, and it's full of beautiful properties there. It helps with vasodilation. You mentioned calendula, Oregon grapefruit, another one excellent for the immune system. And if anyone has trouble with MRSA, think of Oregon grapefruit, because it will allow the antibiotics to work because MRSA will spew out the antibiotics. But Oregon grapefruit cause that to be in check so that the MRSA gets destroyed by the antibiotics. And then we got elderberry, antiviral. I mentioned this before. Whoops, hang on. I'll send some around to you. This is my favorite herb when it comes to the viral infections. And every chronic disease has one thing in common. It's inflammatory. Even depression is inflammatory. So you can use turmeric root for that very well. And I think I've just got a few more. So I'm going to have another 10-minute break here. And did you have an announcement to make? Okay, you're good. Okay, so we'll have another 10-minute break. And then what we're going to do after, I'm going to talk about specific conditions. And then I'm going to pass around a few herbs for you to look at. And then we're going to have a Q&A section. Okay, so if you've got any conditions you want me to talk about, we'll do it the next session. Okay, so just take a 10-minute break, and we'll be back here at about nearly 10 past. All right. We got an announcement? Yeah.
All right, just a quick announcement before we take our break. First of all, we have some giveaways we're going to be doing here in a little bit. That's going to be based on you turning in a survey. I encourage you, before the break is over, please turn the survey in up front, and we'll use the survey to draw to see who's going to win. Also, I saw a lot of you guys taking pictures. This presentation is being recorded and is up on our website at newalbanysda.org. That's NEWALBANYSDA.org, albany.org. So if you want to go watch this again or go and push pause on these slides or hear what he said, please go check that out. Also, if you have questions, be sure to write those down for that Q&A session. And now let's go ahead and take our break. 10 minutes. All right, let's come back together, everyone. Let's all join back in here. Dr. Lee's going to be back with just a second. I got one more announcement to make right before he shares. If we can come back and have a seat. Excellent. So I got the website up on the screen. So I had that mistaken. It's not newalbany.org. It's newalbanysda.org. One more announcement. This next week, we meet here at this church normally on Saturday mornings for our main service about 10 a.m. This next Saturday, I'm going to be sharing a message, I'm still working on it, probably called Natural Remedies and the Bible. So if you're interested about that spiritual connection, where it's coming from, then I invite you to join us this next Saturday morning. Sorry, I was running back and forth. I'm out of breath. New Albany, right here at the New Albany Seventh-day Adventist Church. You're welcome to join us next Saturday, Natural Remedies and the Bible.
Is this on? Okay. If I wasn't speaking somewhere else, I would come and listen to that. Okay. You want to do a drawing? Oh, feel free if you want to do it. No? Okay, sure.
All right, I've been informed we're going to do a drawing right now for those here. Make sure you turn those surveys in. All right. Now's the time to turn those surveys in. If you got a survey, pass that on over to me. Okay. Yeah, fold it in half. Are you doing, just fold it in half. There you go. Are you going to do the drawing, Jenny? Okay. Jenny is my wife, for those who don't know. Okay. All right, we're going to go. We ready? All right. Okay, there you go. You know what, Jenny? They're going to see you again, so if they don't win, you're going to be the bad guy. Why don't we make him do the drawing?
Oh,
He's leaving. He's not going to be here next week. He just said. So we're going to do two drawings. The first person who wins gets your choice. You want the incredible plant-based cookbook or the 8 Secrets to Ancient Health documentary.
All right. I won't look. I'm not related to anyone here. All right, there we go.
Except by Adam and Eve, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Brianna, all right. Which one do you want?
All right.
Congratulations, Miss Brianna. You're taking the cookbook.
Right.
Well, I would too.
Okay.
All right. Actually, I already have
All
one.
right.
So.
All right. Oh, there we go. What do we got here? James
James Hendricks. All right. He just.
Look at that.
There you go, brother. Good job turning that in.
I didn't look. I didn't see a number one.
God bless you guys.
Okay. All right. And no, we're good. We're good. Okay. All right. Yeah. So let me turn it off again. There we go. All right. That's okay. All right. We'll just wait for that clicker to work there. All right. So I know many of you came with specific conditions that you want me to address. Okay. We are back here. All right. So we'll hold that off. We'll just finish this and then we'll go to that. Okay. I mentioned before CBD oil. Okay. So years ago when people started telling me about this, I was a little bit skeptical, but I did some research into it and I couldn't deny some of the amazing stories that people were sharing with me. Now, I just want to be clear, I don't promote marijuana at all for any reason, but I do believe that CBD oil, which comes predominantly from hemp, you can get it from marijuana, but a hemp is very, very similar to the marijuana plant. Now, if I tell you the word cannabis, what do you think of when I say that word? You think of marijuana, right? But cannabis isn't the umbrella term. There's many different plants under cannabis. All right, so it's a family. Think of it as a family name. All right, and under that you have even oat straw is actually part of the cannabis family. You have hops part of the cannabis family. You have CBD part of the cannabis family, and of course marijuana, and there are several more. So what I'm trying to say is that we don't demonize uh, plants based upon a family name. We treat each herb as we would evaluate the character of a person. We base it upon its own merits. All right. So what does it do? How does it work? Um, are there any dangers attached to it? Are there any side effects attached to it? We do not use any herbs that have psychotropic effects. And what that means is we don't use anything that's going to create a feeling of being high, okay? That's going to jeopardize the frontal lobe. That's going to reduce a person's ability to resist temptation. That's going to create addictive dependencies that is going to cause serious side effects. So I want everyone to understand that not all herbs are safe, okay? And so we avoid those based on their own merits. Marijuana is one of those, but CBD oil is a little bit different. And now the THC, which is tetrahydrocannabinoids, that is what gives people the high. Okay, now there is a very small percentage of that in the hemp, but you can actually get that removed. It's not enough to really give you a high. But in marijuana, it's like it can be over 40%. All right, and I don't recommend smoking any herbs. Sometimes I'd have someone come in my store and say, "What have you got to? What have you got to smoke?" And I'd have to tell them they're in the wrong store. Okay, so smoking plants is not God's plan. Okay, but CBD oil from the hemp plant can be very effective in helping with some serious conditions. I especially have seen it work very effectively for pain and also for seizures and for sleep. A lot of people take it to help improve their sleep. And it is a very powerful anti inflammatory. We have cannabinoid receptors in our body that uptake the CBD chemistry that can cause some profound physiological changes. So I would say this: if you're in doubt of using any herb, don't use it until you're confident in it and you've done the research and you feel good about it. Um, at the same time, um, you know, there's this balance between what you may read online and what is actually playing out in people's lives, right? And so I believe that it's better to gather from both sources, right? Find out if people are having reactions to it and so forth. And so far, I've been pretty happy. We don't actually make this, we don't sell it, but I'm in favor of using it for selective situations. I mentioned before about Vitex. Actually, I'll pass this around for you. This is the berry. This is, let me pass that around. Okay, that is from the bush, the Vitex agnescastus bush, and that is a hormonal normalizer. I believe you have some here, right, Karen? Is she here? I think you have some here. And if you've got fertility issues, one of the best texts I'd love to get is texts from grandparents. They say the mother gets it for the daughter or daughter-in-law, and they have a hard time conceiving. And I love those texts. Say we've got a new grandbaby, or we've got our first grandchild. I had a good friend of mine. He his wife started taking it. She had some terrible PMS issues, and she was so relieved to take Vitex. It was just, she said, the first time in my life I haven't had any issues. And then we didn't hear from her for a couple of months. We thought, wonder what's happened, because her bottle would have run out. She would have needed some more. And then we find out she's pregnant. I didn't hear from my friend after that. I hope he's forgiven me. I forgot to tell him it was a side effect, but anyway. The don't take Vitex unless you want to get. If you don't want to get pregnant, don't take Vitex. Put it that way. All right. And it's good for other things like fibroids, endometriosis, PCOS, amenorrhea, dysmenorrhea, many different complaints hormonally. This is okay. This is that herb lungwort I was telling you about before. I'll pass that around for you. All right. Red clover is another excellent herb to take. It's very high in estrogen, and it's very good for ladies who have breast cancer. Often get told don't take anything estrogenic. In most cases, that's good advice. But the red clover, even though it's high in estrogen, it protects you against cancer. And fake estrogens like estradiol, oestrogens. Here's another good one for men's health, men's prostate. Saw palmetto. Saw palmetto is excellent for low PSA levels. In fact, we used to send people to get their PSA test before and after. And there was only one case of a gentleman that didn't get, his PSA levels were lower. And I talked to him not so long ago, and he said he thinks he was misdiagnosed. Yeah, so he didn't have any enlarged prostate. And PSA levels also, the machines aren't always accurate as well. But saw palmetto is very good if you've got enlarged prostate. I think it's 60% of men that are over 40 and over have enlarged prostate. So this is one that I would definitely recommend for that. This is the oat straw I mentioned before. All right. That's that. If you're going to make a tea out of it, you've got to do an infusion for about 4 hours. It has a very tough, fibrous capsule. All right. And so you have to do what's called a long steep if you're going to make a tea out of it. This is ginkgo biloba. Now, I used to live right next door to Andrews University, and we used to walk on the campus, and we found 2 ginkgo trees. And guess where they were? One was outside the theology department, and the other one was outside the psychology department. And I bet you no one knows what they're good for. And so I think God had a sense of humor there. But ginkgo is very good for increasing brain function, and especially good for Alzheimer's. Cognitive issues, it's very good. It's got ginkgosides in there. It actually enhances brain function by stimulating better circulation to the cerebrum, prefrontal cortex. It helps with impaired memory. It also goes well with the herb called gotcha cola. Gotcha cola helps with acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter to the brain. These are some other ones that you can use for memory. Rosemary is another one, and bacopa. Rosemary is very high in rosmarinic acid, which is shown to be effective in clinical studies for memory. This is ginseng, Panax ginseng. Panax is excellent for energy. And one time I went on a plane and I traveled to Philippines on a buddy pass. Anyone traveled on buddy passes? You know what I'm going to say about them. You get knocked off of a plane and you have to wait for the next plane. And it took me 4 days to get home. And I felt as flat as a pancake. My energy was rock bottom. and the Lord impressed me, take my own medicine. So I took some ginseng. Within 20 minutes, I felt like a new creation. My energy came back. I felt really good. But it's excellent for energy. It helps stabilize cortisol levels so the liver's not producing too much. Actually, it mitigates the degradation of cortisol, which is one of those stress hormones that causes inflammation if in excess. And so ginseng is very helpful for energy. It helps with the glucocorticoids that can cause sugar to to regulate sugar supply in the body, and also very good for memory. And it's the king of Chinese medicine. So that is another excellent one for the adrenals. These are some books. If you're interested in learning more, this one here, Medical Herbalism by David Hoffman, is really good. If you're into science, you like the biochemistry, you like the nuts and bolts, that's a really good one. It is more than the average layman. I wouldn't recommend it for the average person, more for the science buffs. And then on the right, this is a real practical book. This is real layman's book. It's Herbal Handbook. It shows you different remedies, different herbs for different conditions. And the Encyclopedia of Herbal Medicine by Andrew Chevalier is another excellent one to show you the chemistry in the plants and how they work and what to do and what not to do. So those are some resources you can get online. We don't sell these books, but these are ones we use in our herbal online training, or some of them. Actually, we don't use the medical herbalism right now. But yeah, a lot of people always ask me, where do you get good information? The best herb textbook has not been written yet. Okay. If anyone knows someone with a deserted island, I can go for 6 months. Maybe I have time to write a book and publish it. But all right. So let's get into some of the herbs that can help with on a regular basis. So I'm going to pass it. Could we pass around a microphone, and we'll have some Q&A time, or if you have any conditions you want me to cover and what herbs could be helpful for those.
I'm a diabetic. Is there any natural herb instead of taking these pharmaceutical drugs that you can take to lower your blood sugar?
Yes. Well, you know, when it comes to sugar control, I'm not altogether out of favor of using medicine for that, depending on the situation. So, if someone needs insulin, they need insulin if their body's not going to make it. But for the most part, I'll tell you this: most diabetes can be reversed. In fact, I used to work at a lifestyle center, and the predominant patient category was diabetes. And so we used to see people coming with a whole ton of medications for their diabetes, and just lifestyle alone, in most cases, was able to reverse things. So diet and exercise are the two biggest categories. Now, that being said, there are some herbs that can help regulate the sugar better, help your body regulate sugar better. One of those is fenugreek seed. Okay, fenugreek has a chemical called 4-hydroxyisoleucine, and it causes the pancreas to produce more beta cells. Now, this is not something that's going to happen overnight. It's a long process, but it can, if you get more beta cells, you get more insulin. Also, Gymnema is another one, Gymnema sylvestri. We use that in our sugar formula with fenugreek, and we also use bitter melon, which helps in insulin sensitivity. Bitter herbs are very good for digestion, but it's very good for the pancreas. So we use that. You can also use turmeric root as well. It's very healing, restorative for the pancreas in particular. And then another one is cinnamon. I would use the Ceylon cinnamon over cassia cinnamon. Cassia is more irritating than Ceylon. All right. And now I'll tell you a story. Now, I've got to be careful how I word this because I don't want to be taken in the wrong way. But I've seen even type 1 diabetes be helped. I had a lady came into my store. She was a nurse practitioner. She had a 9-year-old daughter, and she was a diabetic for about 3 or 4 years. And I was surprised that the mother wasn't giving her insulin. In fact, I even told her, I said, I would give her some insulin. And she just started tearing up on me, and I knew I hit a delicate spot there. So I said, look, I don't know if this will work, but I heard from another herbalist about the use of cedar berries, that in certain situations it may help with type 1. So we worked out the amount. It was 3 times a day. She was only 60 pounds in weight. So it was 3 times a day. And so she started taking these seeds. And now it's a particular type of cedar berry. It's not every cedar berry you can use. It's actually only one particular variety. It's on the Mountain Rose website, mountainroseherbs.com. And so it's related to the juniper tree. And she took these, and she came back a week later, and she had a big smile on her face. Now, her daughter was averaging 300 sugar level, and the average for that week was 140. And she was really surprised, and I was really surprised. I never seen this before. And so she came back, I think it was 2 weeks after that, and she bought her chart again, and she was down to 110. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. She came back a week later, down to as low as 80. And that mother, she sent me everyone she knew in the hospital. We had family from Florida coming up to visit me. I mean, her colleagues and nurses, everyone from the hospital was coming to the store. It was amazing. I was amazed. And maybe God did something extraordinary. I can't say, but it was just an amazing testimony. So even those berries can help. Why I'm telling you about this is because they have shown to be helpful for type 2 as well. So I'm not telling everyone stop their insulin. I'm not telling you all to just go cold turkey. You have to be very careful with sugar regulation. But if you want to try something like that, just tell your doctor what you're doing and just start off on low amounts. Cedar berries, CEDAR berries, but they're a particular type of cedar berry from mountainroseherbs.com. Yes, you had, okay, yes.
So I just wanted to ask a question. I have naturally thick blood, and so
Okay.
I was just trying to find out what kind of herb could I use to like make it not be thick anymore, where I don't have to take
Okay.
blood thinners.
The best blood thinner that I know of is water. Okay. But now, I'll just tell you this. That I'll get into the herbs, but I want to talk about water for a minute because a lot of people drink water the wrong way. You can drink too much water and be dehydrated. If you guzzle water, it's like when the rain comes down quickly and you put a shovel in the ground, it doesn't soak in. I know people, they drink a lot of water, but they're dehydrated because they take it too quickly and they don't space it out. So that's one thing. Okay, secondly, the herbs that are best for blood thinning are turmeric root, ginkgo biloba, and also red clover. Okay, and some of the best foods to take for blood thinning are berries. Berries, your raspberries, your blueberries, all your berries. Okay, they help reduce platelets. Lemon juice is another excellent one to use. But as far as herbs go, turmeric root, also garlic, cloves. They have ethers and mustard oils in there that can cause blood thinning. you want to be careful if you're thinning the blood. You got to be careful if you're going to have surgery around 2 weeks. You want to be off those blood thinners. Okay, if you're having too many blood thinners, you got to be careful as well, because you can overdo it. I've only seen one case on that I've dealt with, and they were just having too many herbs. So you can overdo it, but for the most part, just having a small amount of turmeric, between half a teaspoon to a teaspoon a day, is what I would take as just an average, right? For maintaining good blood, to keep it thin. Yes, there's another
Yeah, like
gentleman.
yeah. I want to go back to the sugar level, or lowering sugar level.
Yeah.
You had recommend fenugreek seed, bitter
Yeah.
melon, turmeric root, cinnamon, and KDI berry. Can you combine all these together, or do you have to be selective about what you use?
You can. Let me tell you about herbs using with other herbs. Herbs with herbs are very forgiving. In fact, I don't know any herb combination that you couldn't use, as long as you're within range. So it's more the herb drugs that you got to be careful of, because you can exacerbate it. That's the thing, right? And if something goes wrong, who gets the blame? The herb will get the blame. Okay, you're the one that troubles Israel. Okay, so I always like to err on the side of caution. Use herbs when it's safe to do so, and in amounts that correspond to what the person needs, and should be fine if you keep within that safety zone. But again, don't use a herb if you don't know how to use it, in what amount, and if it's safe, and with what medication. Certain herbs can be used with medication if you know what. This requires a little bit of study. Like oat straw. Oat straw, for example, you can use in any medication. It won't conflict with any medication. Okay, but most herbs can conflict with certain medications in the right setting. So just if you're worried about it, even if you don't read any literature on it, take it 4 hours apart. 4 hours apart. All right, because there won't be a sufficient amount of the herb. If a herb's going to cause a reaction, it's usually within 6 hours. But by the time it's 4 to 6 hours, it's of lower nature in the bloodstream that it's not going to do too much. All right, next question. Yes.
If you have nerve pain or tingling in the body, what herbs is good for that?
Nerve pain, or what was the other thing?
Tingling in your body.
Tingling in the body. Okay. All right, so neuropathy. Okay, so with neuropathy, usually the first thing I think of is lack of blood flow, right? So if you cross your legs, leave them for a while, you get a funny leg, right? Because you've impeded blood flow to the nerves. So that's the first thing I think of. Then the second thing I think of is there any mechanical damage? Is there any pinched nerve? Is there any compression on the nerve? Is there inflammation on the nerve? Okay. And so you go through this process, then you get to nutrition. There's certain vitamins like B12, for example. B1 is another one, especially in the feet. If you've got any tingling in the feet, B1 is something you want to look at. But with nerve pain, depending where it is. So if it's topical, I would use St. John's wort, because it's one of the best things topically for nerve pain. Internally for depression, but topically for nerve pain. It's very good for that. But you always got to think in mind, why am I getting the pain? Because pain is an educator. And one of the things you got to be careful of with pain is suppressing it. Because if you suppress pain without getting to the cause, you end up with greater pain down the road. And this is why we're in the society the way we are, because we're afraid to meet the consequences of our decisions in the short term. So we kick the can down the road, whether that be with the finances or with decisions we have to make, and it just escalates. And with health, we do the same thing. We want to knock out the signal we want to knock out the symptom, but what we're doing is we're transferring the problem somewhere else. So, see, drugs, for the most part, they don't cure disease. They, in most cases, transfer the form and location of the disease somewhere else. Right? So they give the appearance they're working, but in reality, they're just trading your short-term profit for long-term loss. Right? So anything that's foreign to the body and poisonous in nature is going to cause more problems. So you always got to look at pain as an educator. Why is this pain here, and what is causing it? If I get to the underlying cause, then I don't have to, keep doing the same thing. So I always careful with giving people pain things, because if they don't know what's initially caused that, then their pain could be accelerated by continuing their lifestyle, by continuing their habits that are destructive. So, but yeah, for pain, Jamaican dogwood, we talked about. Cayenne pepper is good for pain. St. John's wort topically. And then also hydrotherapy. Hydrotherapy is excellent for pain. So hot and cold packs, different parts of the body. Hot 2 minutes, cold 30 seconds. Do that 4 times. It works amazing for pain relief. Yes. All right.
Is there a herb for narcolepsy?
Narcolepsy. Okay. I haven't had to deal with too much about that, but I would try, if I was to guess at one of the best herbs for that, I would try some skullcap. 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 Yes. All right. Okay. I'll come closer.
Disease,
Yes.
what would be a good herb for them?
Okay, heart disease. So when you're talking heart disease, you're talking like what? Congestive heart failure, blocked arteries, hypertension.
More, I'm sorry, more of hypertension.
Hypertension. So best thing I know for hypertension. In fact, if you go to any health food store and you look on the shelf for hypertensive supplements, you'll always find hawthornberry listed as one of the main ingredients. So hawthornberry is a vasodilator. It helps improve left myocardial contraction, which increases the ejection fraction, which increases systemic circulation. It has 3 calcium channel inhibitors, 3 ACE inhibitors, 3 calcium channel blockers. It helps with nitric oxide production. It helps with vasodilation. It helps lower cholesterol. And it's also good for thickening blood. So that is one of the best things I would recommend, depending on the cause. So what we do is we mix hawthornberry with some holy basil, because holy basil is an adaptogen, and it's very good for stress-induced hypertension. And then we also use some hibiscus flower. Which one? The holy basil or hawthornberry? Hawthorne. Berry. Yes. Okay. Garlic's another excellent one. If you can't get a hold of these herbs, you want to just know what you got in your house. Let me give you a little nugget that I came across. A lot of people are having just blockages in their arteries, and they have plaque buildup. And one of the ways you can offset that is by fasting 1 meal a day. 1 meal a day. Yes. So you have what's called mast cells. These are part of the immune system, and they are living. They lay in the blood vessels. And when you fast for a few hours, they actually are activated, and they clean up the debris in the blood vessels. Yeah, fasting is one of the best ways to help clean the blood vessels. Um, and then, of course, exercise. We could talk all day about the benefits of exercise. By the way, if you don't enjoy exercise, it's not going to benefit the heart. Studies show that. If you are on a treadmill and you're gritting your teeth, it's not going to help you. All right? But if you go at the golf course and you like playing golf, it will help you. Actually, golfers have 5 year longer shelf. I was going to say shelf life, lifespan. I guess it depends how good you are. Yeah, but walking, swimming, going for a bike ride, just staying active. Gardening is excellent exercise. There are immune enhancers in the soil that when you put your fingers in the soil, they actually get under your nails and actually help your immune system. Um, yes, we have another question.
I was wondering what would be the best thing to take for hot flashes.
For hot flashes, generally the best thing to take is a herb called black cohosh. Black cohosh. Now, it doesn't have an extremely high success rate. I think it's 70% success rate, and you have to take it for a few weeks for it to work. It doesn't work overnight. So that is one of the best ones. But you can have hot flashes from a drop in progesterone or estrogen. So it depends on what's the cause. So black cohosh is more estrogenic. Vitex can also work as well because that's working more on balancing the progesterone. So I would try black cohosh. Yeah.
Is there a herb that helps prevent kidney stones?
Kidney stones. Are you talking about prevention? Yeah. When I was in the Philippines, we had 40% of the men had kidney stones, but it was the water. It was high in calcium. But anyway, with men in the United States, that doesn't seem to be the case. Now, I'll tell you a herb we've used for kidney stones. There's a herb called Chancra piedra. Let me spell it for you. Chanca, piedra, Piedre. Actually, maybe an A. Piedra. Don't hold me to it. It's either an A or an E on the end. Anyway, its common name is stonebreaker. And we've had people, we don't actually sell a remedy for this, but I send people online to get a liquid form of Chancra piedra. And I think in every case that I know about, it's helped them. I've had people that they're going to get surgery in 2 weeks, and they're like, "Oh, is there anything else?" And they hear of me, and they try the Chancra, and it's worked. It's worked really well. So it has the ability to break up the calcium. So calcium, the kidney stones often calcium oxalate, and it helps dissolve that. And so, if kidney stones are very painful. And when they get in those ureters and start expanding, I've heard it said from women, it's more painful than giving birth. So you don't want to get kidney stones. But that's the best thing I know of. Chancra piedra. All right. Next one.
Yes, I had breast cancer back in 15, and it attacked my lymph nodes also. And with the surgery, it killed off a lot of my nerves.
Right.
But there's this one little spot in my back that just like crazy every now and then. And I figure it's a nerve ending, but
Right.
when you look, there's nothing there. How
Yes.
can you make that stop going on?
Right. So is a particular part of the back that itches?
Yeah, it's just
And-
like right back over here.
Right. Okay.
My granddaughter used to be over, and I said, "Baby, get Nana's back," and she'd take her little finger and she do that look just like that, and
Yeah.
that makes it go away.
Okay. Well, I'll just give you a herb for itchy skin. Okay. Because itchiness is actually a form of pain. You know that? Yeah, it's actually categorized as. Okay. Well, you can have what's called referred pain, right? So it's not necessarily right there, but it can be from another area. So I would use um, papaya cream. Papaya cream is excellent for itchy skin. You can also use the milk of the oats for itchy skin. And you can even get some oatmeal soap. One of the best soaps for itchy skin is oatmeal soap. Uh, you may also want to look at getting a little charcoal patch, and sometimes they're this big, but you just cut them into a small strip where that itch is, and just place it over that. All right. There we go.
Yes, I've had damage done to my ear, and the sizzling noise has been going on for years, but it never,
Okay.
I've had every kind of thing try to make it go away, the noise, but it's a sizzling noise and
is
it
it?
never stops. It never goes away. And it's
So
been
were you
going on for
diagnosed
years.
with tinnitus, or were you diagnosed with tinnitus?
It couldn't be tendinitis because the damage that was done, chemicals got in my ear.
Oh, it was chemicals.
Chemicals
your
got
ear.
in my
Okay.
ear from a beautician not taking care of my chemicals that she had put on my hair. So the chemicals got in my ear. And now I
Yeah.
have this sizzling noise where when I was in the emergency room, pus and blood came out of my ear.
Oof,
So
messy.
now I just want to know why nobody can get rid of this
Right.
sizzling noise. It's a steady noise, it never stops.
Okay.
It's been going on now for about 7 years.
Really? Wow. Well, I haven't had any experience in helping with that situation. I have had with tinnitus, but yeah, I remember years ago when my hair started turning gray. I went in to go and get some hair dye, and it had a set of gloves in there, and you had to put the gloves in a set of another gloves. So you wore two sets of gloves to put it on your hair, and I thought, well, okay, I'm that's where I draw the line. Anyway, th- thankfully my wife doesn't mind my gray hair now. But I know there's a lot of chemicals. In fact, I've looked at a lot of hair products, and they either uh, they cause nerve damage or endocrine disruptors. Those two. So if I was to choose what would be the best approach to that, I would say, of course, some nerves in your ear have been affected. So the best way to bring healing to any part of the body is to improve blood flow. So what I would do is get some cayenne oil, and rub it behind the ear. Okay. I would also take some turmeric internally in case there was prolonged inflammation in the ear. And then if that didn't work, I would try some frankincense oil diluted in olive oil, and I would rub it in behind the ear as well. So that would be my go-to herbs for that. Did we have one more? Okay, one
Yes.
more at the back.
Can you share what could be helpful for people with Hashimoto's?
Oh, Hashimoto's. Okay, so for those who don't know, Hashimoto's is an autoimmune condition of the thyroid. So you have low thyroid, so usually too low in T3, T4. 90% of hypothyroidism is Hashimoto's. So most of the time, this is what I've discovered about Hashimoto's, it's caused through prolonged stress over years. Okay, so usually what happens is this: the adrenals go down first. So you have three stages of stress. You have the fight or flight, then you have the adaptive stage of stress, then you have the exhaustive stage of stress. Right? So the fight or flight is like you just see a snake in the grass, all right, and then you get this rush of adrenaline, and then you look again and you realize it's just a garden hose. and then everything goes back to normal, right? But let's say you have stress that's just going on for months and months, and you're in some pain, and it just goes on and on. That's your adaptive stage of stress. Well, when it gets to a point where you can't get out of bed in the morning and you can't function, that's usually the exhaustive stage of stress. Okay, now with hypothyroidism, usually the stage or beginning of the exhaustive stage. And so what happens is the high levels of cortisol, it affects the T3 conversion. There's 5 pathways where T3 conversion gets affected. And just through high cortisol levels. And so it doesn't happen overnight. It's the continual stress that causes that. So the adrenals go, then the thyroid goes, then the hormones go, the sleep goes, the weight goes, the hubby goes, everything goes. All right? And so what you want to do is use things that are going to build up the adrenals and the thyroid. And the 2 best herbs I know for that are the ashwagandha, which I think Karen has here, ashwagandha and rhodiola. Those are the 2 best herbs for that. And then also turmeric root, because it's inflammatory. You want to reduce the inflammation. So ashwagandha, rhodiola, turmeric root. And here's another trick I learned. You can get the oil mixed with cayenne. You heat it overnight in a little crock pot, and you get some of that infused oil, and you rub it on your thyroid gland, and it stimulates the thyroid into greater activity. All right, so those are some of the herbs I'd recommend for hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's. Listen, if anyone needs my, I'll tell you what I'll do. This can get dangerous. I'll give you my phone number. If you need to reach me, don't all call me at once, okay? It's 828-545-6049. 6049. You know what happened last time I did a camp meeting? My phone blew up for a whole week, and it took me a whole week to catch up with my text messages. How long does it take to get me? Usually within a day or 2, I'll get back to you. But sometimes my wife can't even get me. Well, this week we're traveling to Virginia. What's that, Terry? Spell it?
Repeat the number.
Sorry. Okay, 828-545-6049. And if you want more information on our website, you can go to www.americanherbshop, HERB, shop is SHOPPE. All right, it's the old English word for shop.com. We should have called it Australian Herb Shop. There's no Americans work for us. We're all Brits and Australians. If you have a need, I'd be happy. I may not be able to get to your call straight away, but I'll get you as soon as I can. Now, Karen and Randall, they were old students of ours, and they have made some of these extracts. So please see them out there. They will be able to help you. This couple, wonderful couple at the back here, they are the people to see. And they have made, we taught them how to make herbal extracts, and they have taken that upon themselves to do that. So please go and see them. And please come next week. Pastor's got a wonderful message. I'm going to send him some slides, and he's going to do his magic on them and put a wonderful presentation. So make sure you come back for that. And if you got any announcements or anything you need to make.
First of all, let's give Dr. Wellard a round of applause.
Praise God.
Such a privilege. We are so thankful that you came here. We really appreciate it. Before we all get up and scatter to the winds, I want to remind us that we have a free cooking class coming up on February 26th at 3 p.m. here. And we're going to be looking at breads and spreads. For those of you who do not know, we have a monthly supper club where we look and we learn how to make together healthy foods that will hopefully can reverse a lot of the things before we even get to the herbs.
That's
as
right.
Dr. Wellard said. So next month, February 26th, please mark that on your calendars and please come out. At this time, we just want to have a closing word of prayer. And then remember, Karen and Randall are out there with their herbal concoctions, so please see them. And Dr. Wellard may be here just for a second or two longer if you have any individual questions. So at this time, let's bow our heads for a quick word of prayer. Father in heaven, Lord, we are so thankful for Dr. Wellard, for allowing him to come all the way out to New Albany to speak to us, to teach us about these principles that you have placed in nature and that are for our benefit and for our healing. Lord, I pray that you will help us to take these things to our heart, that we can not only hear them, but that we can begin to apply them to our lives. And Lord, we just ask that you will also not only give us the physical healing, but the mental and the emotional and the spiritual healing as well. And I pray that you will bless us now as we leave this place. Please be with Dr. Wellard as he travels. Give him safe traveling mercies. And to all of us as we go to our various places of abode. This is our prayer in the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. Thank you. You are dismissed.